Resume recording. And we are admitting people. Oh. Hey, everybody. So everyone is on mute as you enter the room. And that's just to make sure that we don't have a ton of people trying to talk over each other and distracting each other. So y'all are on mute. Hey, Megan. See, Rob is here. Hi, Rob, Eva. So feel free to turn your cameras on if you want, just so we can see you and smile at you. But we are going to keep microphones muted for now. And we've got just a half an hour for this one today. In the future, they'll probably be a little bit longer. So we are going to get started in probably just like another minute or two. We'll let some folks come in. And then we'll get it going. Glad y'all are here. And then if you do have questions, we do have a chat box, so feel free to pop in a question in there, and Jesse will get to that. Oh, what do you got there, Megan? Tuna and an orange.
Boom. There we go.
Someone's got to tell Steven he's got to do 25 burpees when he gets here.
I'm looking at him right now. He's already in. He looks like, what's Aquaman's name? I'm sure you know it, Tyler.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He looks like that dude now. He's
Jason, oh, look, it's badass.
It's getting unruly. All right, guys, it's 12:01. I'm just going to jump into this thing. So first off, I appreciate everybody for being here. I know we're in this kind of apocalyptic world right now. Gyms are shut down. You know, most of us are here, you know, or in Austin. If you drive down 6th Street now, some of the bars are even boarded up. So it's just kind of a strange time that we're living in right now. One thing that, I'm going to kind of contextualize this is looking at, the audience here. A lot of people are fitness professionals, a couple of people who are kind of just looking to stay healthy. There's just so much kind of fear going around. So my goal for today is really to kind of shift everybody's paradigm a bit and give a little bit of background about the immune system, about how nutrition interplays with our bodies and our immune system. So hopefully we can take that understanding away and feel like we have a little bit more self-efficacy, like we have a little bit more power in a situation like this. So I want to thank you guys for hopping on the call. And I really just want to create a conversation around maintaining an optimal expression of our immune system. So my personal belief is that healthcare practitioners such as myself and a lot of people on this call today, we at least deserve a seat at the table as it relates to optimizing global health and disease prevention, right? Obviously, we're talking about, an infectious disease here, but a lot of people have this fatalistic mindset that, there's nothing I can do. And so I see working with clients right now, I see a lot of mental health issues kind of coming up. I see a lot of people dropping their workout routines. I see a lot of unhealthy behaviors driven into, drinking too much booze, overeating. And so my hope is that understanding some of these, I call them just levers, some of these things to kind of lean into or lean away from can be super helpful as it relates to our immune system. So, but we're really just diving into one thing today. There's multiple things that can affect our immune system. See if I can figure out how to get slides to work. So most of y'all know who I am, right? Growing up in Austin, I've been here since '93. I was actually born in New York, and Shayna says I'm not a real New Yorker, and she kind of like does this. I'm also father to my son River. He's a little, he's like a little like creature right now, just kind of cooing and making all sorts of noises, and my wonderful wife, Amanda, and Jamie, the dog, who has been taking care of my parents during this traumatic time. I'm owner, head coach over Central Athlete. And my kind of story is that I got started in fitness because I just hated corporate America. I couldn't sit still. I was always researching health and fitness things. And so I just kind of made the decision when I was sneaking away to my car to take naps during my lunch hour that I would be best served if I did something I loved instead of showing up every day to something that I hated. So again, there's a lot of things that can affect our immune system. So we're just diving into nutrition, specifically nutrient deficiencies, but some of the other things that can be affecting our immune health are pharmaceutical drugs, endogenous toxins such as bacterial toxins, exogenous toxins such as food additives, artificial flavors, heavy metals, food colorings, pesticides, smoking, sleep deprivation, nutrient deficiencies, which we're going to talk about. Stress just obliterates the immune system, trans fats and rancid oils, functional disturbances of the GI system, dysbiosis of the gut, systemic infections, poor genetics, hormonal imbalances, emotional and social factors, liver toxicity, radiation, and lastly, dental infections. These are all things that can have an effect on our immune system. So, I'm not going to paint a picture that, nutrition is this panacea and it's just going to, create the perfect immune system and, we can just, somebody with coronavirus can cough on us and we're going to be fine. That's not what I'm saying here today. But in my obviously biased opinion, this is what I do every single day. I see clients who, get into a really great rhythm and they never miss training. They have a healthy immune system. And I'm sure Megan, Eva, you guys may have come across these clients as well, where, they're doing great. And these people, they get sick with seasonal allergies. They're doing great. And then they get some sort of cold and sickness when winter pops up. And it's just this perpetual cycle. We work with them for 5 years. And it kind of is this, like, I don't want to say a net even, but their progress really wanes and slows down. And so how can we have conversations with these people? What are the sorts of things that we should know about, both backroom talk and kind of front room talk? I Googled standard American diet. I think this is pretty fitting. And I've seen one of my favorite things is when I do an assessment with somebody is that first assessment and getting their food log. And I see some people who are like, I ate 3 slivers of almonds and 3.6 ounces of chicken. And then you get the other people who are like, corn flakes with lactose-free milk and a little extra sugar and, a donut. And then they have like a burrito for lunch. And then they have some sort of pasta for dinner, right? More of a standard American spread. But we just get all of this whole different spectrum of behaviors as it relates to food. So nutrient deficiency, so consuming nutrient deficient foods leads to deficiencies of essential immune nutrients. So these specific things that we're going to talk about today, vitamin A, vitamin C, beta carotene, these are all things that are going to have some sort of effect at optimizing the immune system. It should be noted that, a lot of times, we talk about like boosting the immune system. Just to be kind of create some clarity with my language today, your immune system can have an optimal function. You can't go kind of beyond optimal function. So a lot of people are in this chronically kind of depressed state right here. They're stressed out. They're not sleeping enough. They're eating a poor nutrient deficient food profile. And so when I say boosting the immune system, I'm just taking them from kind of a lower order to an optimal expression of their immune system. I'm going to try to context this with, the bit of digging and research I did on some of the mechanisms with coronavirus, just because it's in everybody's head. So in the case of coronavirus, if you think of our cells as this kind of big cell, and then the virus of the coronavirus is this kind of like little virus, the outer layer of the virus is wrapped in something called a glycoprotein, with the inside contains something called messenger RNA. So with proper nutrition and immune function, this virus is essentially going to kind of bounce off, right, our cells. Okay. Now, if the virus is successful, it's going to attach to a receptor site on our cells. The current literature is that the scientist thinks this is something called the ACE2 receptor. And through that receptor, the RNA particles go into that cell. When they go into that cell, they inject their nucleic acids. And this essentially has intelligence to take over our cells and start reproducing more and more viruses. Now, the thing that I'm going to get into when we start talking about vitamin A on the next slide is that viruses do not harm or kill us. And I want to say that again, right? This is not conjecture. This is, this is the facts. Viruses do not harm or kill us. It's the overreaction from our body's immune system that does. Specifically, something called a cytokine storm. So, vitamin A, we can get it from egg yolks, liver, animal fats, fish, and liver oils. Essentially, it's a shield that provides structural integrity for our cells. This is called keratinization. Our bodies will produce enough vitamin A if we have an optimally working thyroid, as well as getting enough from food and supplementing it. So vitamin A essentially protects our cell. So when we talk about kind of the virus and the cell right here, the more optimal amounts of vitamin A and a functioning thyroid that we have in our body, the better we are going to be to preventing an immune reaction. So if the immune system is compromised from all sorts of things like drugs, stress, sleep, nutrition, all the things that we talked about, it's going to overreact. This is called a cytokine storm. And so it's not the virus that's hurting us, it's the body's reaction. So this is where other nutrients come into play and are very, very helpful, such as vitamin D and C, specifically if we were to get sick. Enable our immune system to not have such a robust and overreaction from an immune standpoint. There are trillions of viruses in our body and they come and go, right? So if I were to shake Megan's hand, we would transmit potentially millions of viruses just in transmitting, kind of hand-to-hand contact. Most of those are benign and not anything that we're going to react to or we have immunity. We also have trillions of bacteria in our gut as well, which also plays into our immunity. And I want to say one thing too, is we have a chat box here too. So I'm going to be just kind of going through this super quick. And if you guys have questions when they come up, I'll kind of touch on those here at the very end. So my belief is, so how do we support our immune system from a centralized approach? The things that I personally advocate for, access to clean water, access to clean food, and good nutrition. Also, there's an affordability component to that as well. There's a lot of people who are of lower socioeconomic status, and simply going to McDonald's is more cost effective than you can buy like an apple for like $1, right? If you look at the amount of calories you get from the apple and the amount of calories you get from the Big Mac, you're going to go for the more calories, right? But that leads to a compromised immune system and just general health markers over time. Beta carotene. Beta carotene boosts the immune system. It increases vitamin A levels. It has immune enhancing effects as well. It enhances the activity of natural killer T cells. This comes in a lot of I just think vibrant colors, essentially. It kind of works synergistically with vitamin A. Vitamin E. Access to intracellular antioxidant and helps maintain cell membrane integrity. We're going to get these from a lot of seeds. Again, green leafy vegetables, egg yolks. You're going to see a lot of common themes with a lot of the types of food that have certain types of these nutrients. So at the end, we're going to discuss kind of what might be an optimal diet for enhancing immune function or just general health. Vitamin C, I think, again, really colorful things here. So a lot of citrus fruits, some vegetables have good amounts. Usually vitamin C is kind of a non-issue for most people. However, there's a difference between maintenance and a therapeutic doses. Some of you may have heard of people, like in Europe, say Switzerland, they have a lot of biological medicine practitioners who use this as adjuncts to cancer therapies or dealing with chronic diseases. They'll supplement intravenously with 10 to 15 grams of vitamin C for very short-term basis. If you're supplementing with this, I would always advise working with a practitioner. It's very, very, there was a recent piece in the Wall Street Journal, and the doctor was like, yeah, vitamin C and D can be pretty helpful for people, but you can potentially overdose, so don't take them. I think that's where I personally have a little bit of an issue. I think these things can have a lot of utility for people, I think the highest order form is through food. But if you do move to a supplement route, working with a professional is a good way to do this. You know, the way to kind of understand your tolerance for vitamin C is it's based on your bowels, and eventually you'll have kind of some reversal in bowel function, and that's kind of how you understand kind of a therapeutic effect. B6, essentially not having enough B6 is going to lead to depressed antibody and cell mediated immunity. Sources like legumes, organ meats, chicken, bran, watermelon. If you guys are familiar with Matt Lalonde, he did his PhD thesis in nutrient density. And if you're interested, I can send you over the information. So what he did is he essentially took like a food database with like 70,000 foods, and he analyzed with like, you know, vitamins, minerals, B vitamins, amino acids, phytonutrients, all these different things. And he created an algorithm, and he analyzed foods that ranked foods most nutritiously to like least nutritiously. So my belief was that fruits and vegetables were the most nutritious thing, and Matt Lalonde's work actually pioneered that organ meats and specifically animal-based protein was the most nutrient-dense food with the way that he calculated. So really interesting thing, especially during the time I know Steven has been digging into the carnivore diet here a bit. You know, there's a lot of talk about how it is, you know, just a very nutritious food. Also recently read a book, you know, about the Comanche Indians, and they would eat the buffalo and bison nose to tail. And, you know, they were also a very, very, very vibrant, like aesthetically strong culture as well. Zinc, we've heard a lot of things, you know, like you get sick, take a zinc lozenge. It can, you know, shave off, you know, a couple days or decrease the severity of said illness. But it plays a large role in maintaining immunity in our bodies. Zinc deficiency is strongly associated with immune dysfunction and susceptibility to infections. We'll get into some other slides about how we can analyze zinc deficiency. One of the ways like functional medicine practitioners do it is they'll do like a zinc taste test, and you can swish some solution in your mouth. And if you kind of get this like metallic taste, it's indicative that you are more likely to have a zinc deficiency. There's some things that we can look at routine blood work as well, specifically with alk-Phos being under a specific number. And you can get some insight whether or not people are dealing with zinc deficiency. Selenium, really important for thyroid health. So there's a connection between thyroid and immunity. If we have an optimally functioning thyroid organ, it can be very, very helpful for immune function as well. It's recognized as a useful nutrient to protect the body and cells in particular cancers such as breast, lung, urogenital, liver, colorectal, prostate, and ovarian. Copper. Not going to go into this too much. Almonds, pecans, walnuts. So I think a lot of nuts. It also depends on soil quality because it's a mineral. So, you know, you can have an almond, two exactly same almonds, but one grown in California with optimal soil, and then one grown in Texas where we've had unsustainable farming practices for the last 40 years, and you're going to see a completely different mineral profile there. So soil does matter. And then protein. Protein is something that we harp on a lot, but it is extremely important for immune health. Not only is maintaining an optimal body composition super important, but protein deficiency can severely affect cell-mediated immunity as well as facets of the immune system. Protein deficiency is usually associated with other factors, including nutrients and digestive dysfunction, right? Beef, eggs, whey protein. It's a little bit more complicated if you have a vegan or vegetarian, but we can still get our needs from non-animal sources as well. I kind of put a rough recommendation here because it does depend on the biological age of the individual as well as what they're doing for exercise. So kind of a range of anywhere from like 3/4 to 1.5 times their body weight in grams of protein. All right, so what suppresses the immune system? One of the clinical pearls that I really like, and I didn't know, and I was doing this for years, is, I don't know, raise your hand if you thought like extra virgin olive oil was like the shit and healthy for like a period of time. Like I know I did, and I was always putting extra virgin olive oil on things, but if it's heated at high temperature, it actually goes rancid and it can suppress the immune system. So I was trying to look at what that temperature was. It's somewhere between like 400 and 425 degrees where it begins to become unstable. And so if you guys are, using it to saute something, or maybe baking something in the oven at like a medium high to a high heat, it's not the best oil due to its instability. So things like coconut oil, avocado oil have a little bit higher temperature. Abnormal mucosal barrier of the GI tract is something that can affect the immune system as well. So not to dig into it too much, but we have our innate and adaptive immune system, right? Which is kind of like the old kind of thought process, but we also have something called the interferon, and then the your microbiome immunity as well. So if you have something called intestinal hyperpermeability, right? So we've all heard of like leaky gut before. So if we have a reaction to things like gluten, it can affect the kind of lining of our gut and kind of gap out kind of lining. So like food particles essentially seep through that and get into the bloodstream, and our body starts to create an antibody response to this food particulates. And then something else called secretory IgA dysfunction. This is probably the most important part of this whole talk right here. So I want everybody to pay attention. This is where I see it go wrong. Blood sugar management. This is probably the most massive thing that I see. And if you are a coach, this is the big one to look out for. You'll see people and they're drinking like the healthiest smoothie from like Juice Land. They're working out, they're meditating, and then 3 nights per week, they get lost in the 30 rack of Natty Light or Appletinis or whatever people are drinking these days. Right. So, consuming 100 grams of carbohydrates in the form of glucose, fructose, sucrose, like ethanol, which is going to be converted to some of those forms, honey, orange juice can significantly reduce white blood cell count. So if you think about the standard American diet, right, it's pretty, we can suspect that a lot of people are going over that pretty consistently. And this was a study with at least 100 grams of carbohydrates in one sitting. The effect on white blood cells was from 30 minutes all the way to 5 hours. There's a 50% reduction in the ability of white blood cells to destroy and engulf foreign particles. And the maximum inhibition of white blood cell activity corresponds to the highest glucose level. So essentially, right, when all of it hit the system, that's when there's like an inverse relation between white blood cell activity. And so this is thought to occur because of the higher insulin levels. But again, if you just think about the standard American diet, you think back to that slide, this is what so many people eat, right? And so it kind of breaks down the bias that, have you ever heard, like my mom when I was sick, she's like, drink some orange juice. But if you think about that now, and I'm getting slammed in the face with like 50 grams of like carbs there, and then she gives me my Egos with my syrup and stuff, like I'm kind of at that 100-gram threshold, and I'm just squashing my immune system by doing so. So I want you to just pause and think twice next time somebody tells you to drink orange juice for a cold. And then also unhealthy body composition. InBody throws off some norms, 10 to 20% for a male, 18 to 28% for a female. In my own personal experience, and this is nothing but my own experience and my own biases, and I have no science on this, I would say that's a little bit tighter, right? Maybe something closer to like 10 to 16% for guys, maybe, 18 to 26% for females. I just see better health outcomes. I see better immune system function, but I really have nothing other than my own experience and a lot of InBodies to support that. How do you analyze your nutrient profile? My favorite, and Shayna, I get the pleasure of working with Shayna. We had this like pushing and shoving match about shifting from MyFitnessPal to Chronometer for like months. I love Chronometer because it's a great tool to help me analyze nutrient density. So this is a 2-week food log that I exported for somebody. And this is just a summary of the averages of all of their nutrition. So it's really, really great. I know that this person on average eats a ton of fiber. How much fiber are they eating? Yeah, 75 grams. I actually looked at this person's food profile, and they had like some bar that had like 26 grams of protein in the bar. And I'm like, man, like that would just have me run into the bathroom. She was eating like 2 of them per day. So I thought that was interesting. Iron looks great, but you can see consistently that calcium is coming in low. Vitamin, I think that's vitamin vitamin E comes in a touch low. And really what I look for is if somebody's consistently coming in about 80% of the RDAs, then it kind of gives me pause. And I want to try to adjust their nourishment profile to try to beef up and improve food quality. So, right, food is always the prerogative, right? We're always going towards food in order to fill in these holes. And if somebody, right, say they're a vegetarian, right? I may want to have them supplement with whey protein because they're just not getting a complete amino acid profile. Or say somebody just has GI issues and they like look at kale and they get diarrhea, right? Maybe I need a supplement with something to help them get some of those, you know, B vitamins, some of those minerals that they may not be getting from the foods that they cannot eat. I really like 3 to 14 consecutive days on Chronometer because that's going to allow me enough time to get some insight. In a perfect world, everybody submits a 2-week food log, but if you ever worked with a client before, people are awesome during the week and then they're like, oh yeah, I went out with Jimmy and we just, you know, things happen and I forgot tracking. So sometimes you have to be okay with a little bit shorter. Routine labs, right? We can get some insight into what's going on with people, their physiology. And so, you know, we can understand, you know, if we didn't make some adjustments here. It actually got cut off, so I apologize about that. But, you know, alk-phos specifically is one of those things that you can look at to see somebody has, you know, low levels of zinc, or let's see, homocysteine. If so, homocysteine is elevated, sometimes it has to do with B vitamins. NutriVal, so this is an advanced test. I've run this with several clients before, and it is a little bit more costly, but it's a simple blood test. It's super great, and the people over at Genova are excellent at helping analyze this information, but they give you, this is just one of like 13 pages. This gives you a really, really, really interesting perspective of whether or not you need certain foods and vitamins. This was actually my blood work when I was investigating the NutriVal, and I was taking B vitamins double dose for 2 years, and I still had a critical need for B2. If you guys have ever taken like Animal Pack back in the day, those multivitamins, or any vitamins, and your pee turned radioactive yellow, it's because riboflavin, just another fun clinical pearl, your body metabolizes it. The half-life is about 2 hours. So if anybody's like, oh, I feel like I'm just peeing out my vitamins, well, it's actually riboflavin, and there's probably a good amount of them in it. But I had a specific genetic, specific nucleotide polymorph, just a genetic difference that had a critical need for B vitamins that I was able to ascertain through a test like this. What's the optimal diet, right? Lean meats, nuts, seeds, veggies, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. 10 different shades of veggies per day will cut all-cause mortality by half. Very intake of, you know, based upon energy expenditure. So I've got a buddy who works for VMware, and he is a sloth, right? And he eats 1 meal per day, and that's like probably pretty awesome for him. And then I've got, right, some of you guys here, I would probably encourage you guys to be eating 4 to 6 meals per day, because a lot of people here are super duper active. In my opinion, though, this is kind of like an 80-20, 90-10 thing. Is we should have the resiliency to eat, you know, the foods that we enjoy, you know, drink a bottle of wine, you know, once every couple of weeks, and not just get completely ruined from it, right? This is not a religion. This is life that we're living. So, you know, eat this stuff the majority of the time and then have some fun. But if you get just ruined by looking at bakery, something else, likely the gut, is probably going on, right? There's a higher versus lower order spectrum here. So, right, we can get grass-fed, pastured, organic, or we can get bologna at Walmart, shipped to my door, right? It's still animal-based protein, but I think there's higher and lower order forms. We'll dig a little bit more into allergies and intolerances on another talk. It connects back with ancestry. It connects back with how we were born. It connects with juvenile feeding practices. Fastening and shortening the eating window. This is something that's super popular right now. It does have an immune boosting effect. But for most people, I see them just skip breakfast, and a lot of times it can affect the mental acuity later in the day. So instead of eating to the second till you go to bed, maybe, you know, quit eating around 6:30, give yourself a couple hours, and then, right, that still equates to maybe a, 16-hour feeding window, and you're still, you know, intermittent fasting, but you just didn't eat up until bedtime. And then supplements can fill these holes, treat conditions, always utilize a, qualified professional. We're going to be doing another one of these talks Wednesday. We're going to TBD on what the topic is going to be. So we'll follow up with everybody. And I'm going to answer some of these questions in a second, but if you want this slide deck, just shoot me a message. A lot of people have my phone number directly or email. I'll send these things over to you. This could be super helpful just to reference for your clients or for your own personal uses. But let's kind of see if I can figure out how to open up some of these questions.
The first question, Jesse, was how does this apply? You mentioned thyroid a couple times early on. How does this apply if someone does not have a thyroid?
I'm going to have to get back on that question. I think that's a little bit, I'm trying to see if, I'm going to have to get back on that. That's probably a little bit beyond my scope of practice, and I'm not completely familiar, but it just makes things a little bit more tricky, right? Because they are going to be, maybe like a touchdown from the next person in terms of immune health. But that's kind of just the first thing off the top of my head. So I will follow up on that one.
Cool. Awesome. Eva, we'll make sure we get that one back to you. So I think that was the only question. There was a question about if we're recording this. This is being recorded. I'm going to figure out the best way to kind of distribute and share that. It is being recorded though. These all will be. And then, as Jesse said, you can follow up with him to get all the slides, and we'll do that for all these talks as well. Slides will be available after for everybody. So yeah, I know Jesse's got to jump right now because he's got to do a remote assessment for a new client that he's going to be working with. So that is super exciting. I do not want him to be late for that. So Jesse, we will see you later. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm excited for a couple more of these. Megan, Shayna, Steven, Tesla, Jake, Eva. I think that's Rachel. Is that Todd Frederick King over there? I think so. I saw a smile. Rob, Siri, a lot of people. Oh, Mom. Hey, Mom. All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Thanks. All right. Thanks, y'all. It was wonderful to see you. And hopefully we'll see you on Wednesday.